I'll try.
Mics are on.
But if you get
Testing.
it's not my fault.
We're going to call to order. If you'd please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to just start out with a little moment of silence to recognize the passing of Danny Fox, who was a previous mayor for our community. Okay, thank you. He will be missed. He's a big part of our community, or was a big part of our community. Let's start with the roll call.
Councilmember Kay.
Here?
Councilmember Stroman.
Here.
Councilmember Engel.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Here. Mayor Hagan.
Here. So we have some crazy Cougars to bring up here, it sounds like. Congratulations to our varsity Escalon Youth Cougars. Getting the Super Bowl, sounds like a couple of them here in the last 3 years. Yeah, good work. That's awesome. Looks like we have to present you an award here, but I wanted to go over a few things your coach had given me here as far as things to note so the public knows about. They went 13-0 with 4 shutouts. Outscored opponents 466 to 162. That's pretty awesome. Got a good defense there. Obviously a good offense as well. But your average score for each game was 36 to 12. Pretty impressive. Ranked #1 varsity team in the 209 by North Valley Empire. So pretty impressive out of 11 teams in your league. So it also looks like you did a 32 to 28 win in that Waterford game. So you guys should be proud of your efforts. That's pretty awesome to represent a little town like this and do so well. So I don't know if any of the dais wants to say anything to the community.
I just have a request, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate all the parents being here and supporting all of the athletes, but can we have all the athletes that are sitting out there please come forward and stand by the podium?
Don't be shy.
Kind of fan out to the sides there, guys.
Boys, move.
Come on, come on, come on.
Sounds like an ad just for 3 boys. I don't think y'all lined up the right way. Wow, behind your face.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Coaches too.
Yeah, the coaches are here.
They don't get here without coaches. Good work.
Some, the other ones are hiding in the back.
The other coaches are on.
Two more.
Good work, huh? Thank you. Good work.
Yep.
Well, Jack's not here.
No,
See? Okay, we'll say hi to him.
I will for sure.
Well, I guess they want to get a picture.
Okay.
Yep. So could everybody come together and face this way?
There you go.
Come, act like you like each other.
There you go.
Okay, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Say Cougars.
Talk about other brothers. Selfie stick in.
Great job, Coach. I'm sure the high school will be happy to have them.
I'm sure. The official
Dan's gonna be
official meal of Escalon Youth Cougars.
I'm shutting down like 2 people in their bodies.
Kind of got lost in some of those kids are bigger than you are, so.
Yeah, man. Some of them are tall. A few of them over standing on this side were huge.
What is it, 8th grade?
Yeah. And you don't see too many 5'10" 8th graders.
No, not at all.
So, just give a sec here.
Try to.
And so we wanted to move on to this quarterly major infrastructure project update. Is that the game plan? So give it to the city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we have committed to providing about quarterly, we don't hit the quarter exactly, but providing quarterly updates on the major the major infrastructure projects. In the 2025-2026 strategic plan, we highlight 2 major infrastructure projects, primarily the surface water conveyance project. The city does have an allocation of surface water in the plant. That is a partnership with SSGID, City of Lathrop, Manteca, and Tracy, but do not yet have a way to convey the water from that plant to the city. And so this has been on the books for some time. Council has prioritized this as one of the top 4 priorities in the 2025-2026 strategic plan. And we want to share not only an update on that, but as well as the wastewater treatment plant project, which has also been in the pipeline for a number of years. So last year, council directed staff to sort of pause the effort until we figure out exactly where we are financially, or until we had the project fully funded. And so since that time, we have applied for a couple of grants, and I'll say we are trying to punch above our weight in terms of these grants. We're maybe applying for grants that, we're not locks for sure. And we were unsuccessful in a $3 million Water Smart Drought Resiliency grant through the Federal Bureau of Reclamation. And unfortunately, we were unsuccessful with a $2 million grant from a congressionally directed spending funds through U.S. Senator Padilla's office and his call for projects. Good news, bad news, we are out there, we're applying, we're seeking opportunities. Unfortunately, we have not been successful in these latest rounds. We had told council for the Bureau of Reclamation grant, we had about a 40% chance. So it was less than a 50-50. Again, we were not successful in those. And the major part of this update is really resetting the conversation on the funding level. We had said in 2024 that we were closer to having this project fully funded than we actually are. I take responsibility for that, but ultimately we misunderstood the rate study that was done in 2019. We looked at and reviewed the dollars we had on hand in the enterprise fund, but what we found out through Celinda's good work and our team is really money has been moved around in certain locations, and now we feel like we have it in the locations it should be. And so the misunderstanding of the rate study and looking at what the project cost over the years and thinking that was revenue coming in as part of the rate study, and then the money in the enterprise fund sort of being shifted around into its proper locations sort of led to this error. And so we have, if we do get the harder grant, the 1.1 million, which we still think we will get, it's just a matter of the federal budget being firmly approved. If we get the 1.1 million, we'll have about 4 million on hand, which is the amount we expected to have in the rate study, in the 2019 rate study, just less than we had indicated we had in 2024 last year. So we have a much bigger delta than we had originally shared. We have about a $10 million delta. Of course, the project costs less in 2019 than it costs today. So I want to express that no funds were misspent or spent in other places. We just never had the money. The 2019 rate study fully expected that $8 million of the $10 million project at that time was going to be through a state loan, a low interest loan. So we never had the money. But what we are doing now is looking at various options, of course, more grants, more loans if we want to explore that option. But one of the main things we're looking at right now is what we can do with our allocation. Water is a commodity. It's a commodity in this region, especially for growing communities. And so we are talking with a couple of communities about, if there's any win-win situation for the city in terms of leasing that allocation until such time as we can use the allocation. So we're looking into that. In fact, I have a couple of meetings this month with various cities to discuss. If we can figure that out, if we can get a true revenue stream or anything else, get a true revenue stream, then we can come back to the council as we get closer to the project cost and figure out what the council wants to do at that time.
It sounds like it would be a good idea if we can, talking to you before about it, find a collaboration with cities around us where we can structure a deal that allows our water to pay for itself. So I'd say keep working on that. I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, potentially, and it is a commodity for us as well, and we want to ensure we protect that commodity. But if the allocation can work for itself, especially in the period where we don't have access to it, it could again be a win-win. So we're working on that. That's kind of the first effort. Then if we get a revenue stream, then we can start opening up doors here a little bit more and seeing how the council wants to move forward with the project or not.
So,
Sorry. I think whoever wants to go first.
go ahead, Jeremy.
So it shows that there's a $10 million funding gap, but it looks more like there's an $11.1 million funding gap because the money from Harder's office is expected. Well, what can you define expected?
So there's a process where we apply. They have informed us that we have been awarded, but is contingent on the federal government budget, approving that expenditure, and secondly, the budget being approved. So last year with the new administration, some of these grants and other earmarks were put on pause for a period of time. And so we had a 2025 award from Harder's office that was paused. We went kind of back through the process. They committed to awarding the same projects. So we received word that we have been funded on their side or awarded on their side for the 2026 project. It just, again, hasn't quite made its way to the federal budget. We expect it to.
This conference will now be recorded.
We expect it to, but to your point, there's no guarantee that that materializes.
When would we know for sure?
As soon as the budget is firmly adopted, not, these continuing resolutions and those types of things, but as soon as it's adopted, we'll know.
So my question is, I've actually have a two-parter question. So the surface water project was in response to state legislation that was passed due to the aquifer being overdrafted. And there was a state mandate that was really forcing cities to get off of wells and look at more and less dependent on wells and more surface water. Is there a definitive deadline from that state legislation that these improvements need to be made by?
No, it is absolutely state law to not overdraft now the basin and the aquifers in a certain geographic location. There's no strict requirement that we have to move to surface water. But even the cities that don't have a requirement, or the regions that don't have, aren't overdrafted, are still hedging bets towards the future. And there's two different things. There's quantity issues and quality issues. So quantity issues means aquifers are drying. I'm not saying in this region, down south, Fresno area, they absolutely are. But quality as well. So state sets maximum contaminant levels for different, chemicals. Chemicals isn't exactly the right constituents, various things in the water. And as those get more stringent, it becomes harder and more expensive for communities to pull clean water. And so you're hedging your bets, you're diversifying your portfolio, so to speak, to have this surface water against any sort of catastrophic, groundwater issue.
And then my follow-up question is actually for Public Works. How old is our oldest well that's currently in operation?
I don't know the exact age, I can get back to you, but I mean, it's gonna be roughly 25 years.
And we're still pumping water?
Yep.
Okay. The only reason I ask these questions is obviously the 11.1 or $10 million funding gap is definitely a hard pill to swallow. But as council knows and staff knows, for every month that this continues to be delayed, we're dealing with construction escalation every single month, and the costs keep going up and up and up. And eventually, what the $10 million gap, if we wait 2, 3, 4 years, may turn into $20 million. And unfortunately, on the ratepayers, that's who this is going to come down to, is us, the ratepayers. And so while I appreciate the staff looking at alternative revenue streams, I guess I'm asking the council to consider there's a certain point where we're just going to have to make a tough decision. And we're going to have to decide either we're going to shelf this project or we're going to have to do this project, because the longer that we wait, the cost will continue to climb.
I have a couple additional questions. Do we know if the state is still if we're anticipating the state to drop the level of allowable arsenic in the water, or PFAS? Because I know that was a concern coming into 2026, right? Which is going to really ultimately eliminate surface water anyway. Everything's going to have to be treated. So do we have an update or status for that?
Arsenic's one that is continued to be talked about, but there's no real movement right now to lower that contaminant level. It seems like every several years, we'll call it, there's a new contaminant in the water that needs to be either treated or avoided. And so, again, it's this hedging of the bet. There's nothing imminent on either one of those or others that has been mentioned. But it's just increasingly getting more challenging and more expensive to treat water.
Thank you.
It seems to me like the logical answer here is to take and figure out a game plan as much as you can with, using that water as leverage, as, potentially creating a game plan with another city or two to strategize in a mutually beneficial way, without, putting ourselves in a negative spot. And then from there, once you know what that number is, then looking at the potential for how much we would have to actually, get as a loan. Because I think, my gut feeling is we can make that number much lower.
Yeah.
I'll just come out and publicly say I've been against this project since the beginning, and I still am. I'm not a fan of the state trying to shove stuff down our throat if we believe that our wells are going to sustain us with the population that we have. I don't see any need in pursuing a project that, we're talking, what would the term be? That'd be a century. I was thinking decades, right? That's a century. That we're talking about a century until it actually needs to be addressed. Would that be kind of accurate? How long do you think that our wells would be able to sustain us?
We're under construction now with the wells we have. I mean, you can foresee you're on average probably going to be every 10 years redoing a well into town until we can make that. So right now we're under construction on one. We don't have one on the pipeline anytime soon, but I would project within the next 7 to 10 years we'll have another well that will be up ready for a rehab.
Repair, or are we having to dig deeper?
Dig deeper, yes. It depends on the well site. The well site right now, we did go deeper to find good water.
Yeah, and I would agree to a certain
project?
Correct.
I would agree to a certain extent. I think a lot of it has to do with the details of the funding. So, anytime you can have multiple options, in theory, that would be the right answer, in my opinion. But in a way that's not going to hamstring the community.
Yeah, in my opinion, would be if we're claiming that it's state funded, or state mandated, let the state fund it.
Which is
Out of our
understandable.
backyard.
Makes sense. Any other thoughts up here?
I definitely agree with Councilman Engel's statement there. If the state wants to force us to spend $11 million, well, maybe they should, pony up some change towards this, especially if, we're reaching out and asking for grants. The current well that's under construction is actually our deepest that we have, correct? What's the footage on that again?
I don't want to give you the wrong number. I'll get it to you.
Okay. But without not even being online, obviously we don't have a desperate need for, the surface water, being ran into town. So I think that we're definitely going down the right path here in, pursuing a deal with another city to, make some profit off of the allocation that we have invested in rather than continuing to try and force this through when financing it would be the only option that we would have, taking out a loan and paying whatever the interest rate on it is. And you said the state is no longer giving us the opportunity for a low interest loan on it?
No, they are.
Okay.
We just haven't
Pursued it.
apply for that.
Okay.
Well, I think the best strategy is finding a strategy that's not obviously going to put extra pressure on the ratepayers. So if we can either do it through a constructive collaboration or, like you're saying, the state's, ponying up, I think that's where I'm at. I don't think we need to be going after a $10 million loan. I think we need to be thinking rationally, definitely being conservative with our money.
Are there state grants? So a lot of the grants that appears that we're going after are related to federal. Are there not state grants that are tied to this?
Yeah, there are some. They go through, funding cycles, and we need to be eligible for certain ones, but we will apply for state grants as well.
Any other thoughts up here?
When the state's running a $28 million deficit annually for the last 4 years, I don't see them helping us out anytime soon, so.
Frank, do you have any objection to me asking the citizens? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Comment?
Or comments, I should say?
It's going back to kicking the can down the road. I mean, you've got so much water that we can pull out of that aquifer. We're running out of that. If we're spending millions every 10 years to redo wells that are going down deeper and deeper and getting into the arsenic and other, especially nitrates. If you guys has the time, if you have the time, look up what nitrates do to the body, especially the young male body. Sooner or later, we're going to have to go to the surface water. So, like I said, we've gone through this 30 years, and we're not any further than we were before. Like I said, you got to bite the bullet and take care of this sooner or later, because all of a sudden, we're going to be having no water available because it is contaminated and/or the pumps aren't working. And you're going to have to get a loan to get them working anyway. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, anyone else have any thoughts? No? Okay. Online? No? Okay, we'll go to the consent calendar.
We just have the wastewater update, wastewater treatment plant update, which will be quick. So we've discussed, and most of this was presented at the last meeting, but we had talked about this sort of $40 million project. It was designed and then sort of peer reviewed, and things were explored further than the conceptual plan through the original design. So, generally we talk about this $40 million project, which is big numbers for a community of this size. And so what we spent a lot of our time working on, which sounds easier than it is how do we phase this project? First of all, kudos to the Public Works team for getting us in a place on the compliance level that we can even phase the project. So as you know, we had a cease and desist order through the state for our wastewater treatment plant. We had notice of violations now for 10 plus years. But we have dialed in the operations of the plant to a point where we are getting clean annual audits, let's call them, clean annual reviews. And so this has bought us time, so to speak. And so we are looking at phasing the project. It's kind of like a house project. You touch something, it's going to affect other things. And so we're really working on the phasing as best we can. The other piece that we're working on is ensuring that everyone is paying their fair share, and this primarily is pointed at industry. Industry, depending on how you look at it, is approximately 50% of the plant, or at least 50% of the operation. I'm not suggesting they pay 50% of the cost, but it's in that ballpark, and so we want to ensure that they are paying their fair share, but we're doing it in a way that they can manage as well. That's not doing anything nice for them, but if they can't pay it, then they can't pay it, and no one is the winner. And so we are devising strategies, kind of looking at the phasing, and then working on getting a real revenue stream from the industry to help pay for this plant upgrade. At the same time, industry is struggling a little bit. Whether you believe the extent that they say or not, I mean, they are struggling. Their production days are down, their revenues are down. So we got to work all of this in together. So it's taking longer than I estimated it would take, but we are working diligently on kind of fitting all of those pieces in together.
Any questions up here?
Just a comment. And I've said this previously at other quarterly meetings. I want to reiterate the fact for the request of the city to seriously consider, once the phasing has been determined, to please look at an alternative delivery method such as design build, because it does not make sense to me to, for the lack of a better term, piss away 6 months of design for phase one when you can actually go into a design build contract and actually save that money and put those dollars directly back into the project and instead of paying a design professional 6 months worth of fee to then turn around and wait another 4 to 6 months for state compliance and permitting. You do this all real time while you're seeking out grants, loans, and rate study. I mean, if you just follow this schedule that we have in front of us, that's 30 months. You could probably have what I'm assuming as phase one, almost 50 to 60% in construction in that 30 months. So I'm begging the city to please consider alternative delivery methods for phase one, or frankly, even related to the surface water project, because it's a little bit out of the box thinking, but it saves a whole lot of money, and you're dumping the money directly back into the construction project as opposed to paying a design professional.
Have you sat down at all and talked about it, or?
A little bit, absolutely. I mean, point well taken. The first three items are kind of concurrent. They're happening at the same time, and so it's not one and then the next. There's always challenges with design build, of course, because you're building at the same time you're designing. That's not to say that can't happen here, so we are exploring that option as well.
Any other thoughts or comments up here? Or, citizens, anyone out there would like to comment on this project, or? No? Online? No? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have one follow-up comment, and that is specifically for Public Works and for Tom McCoy. Really appreciate all of your hard work and all of the extra steps that you guys took place to get us in a good spot, at least. I mean, we still have the cease and desist order, but you guys have done a lot of out-of-the-box thinking to try to help mitigate some of the biggest concerns of the state, and it's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts up here?
I will just mention, sorry, just one last thing. One of the tangible steps forward we did make, much of the cease and desist order and notice of violations is for odors that, emanate from the plant onto other properties. And so city has installed some landscaping to help screen and mask some of that, as well as just visually block from the neighborhood to the south, right? Visually block that. That was funded by industry. We think it'll help in a couple of different manners. Those trees are young, they'll grow over time, but that's a physical step funded by the industry that we have taken in the last couple of months.
And it's fair to say you don't think the tree roots are going to be an issue?
No, we perfectly designed the right type of tree for that reason.
Okay. All righty then. We move on to consent calendar then. 3 and 4. Does anyone want to pull one of those? No? Okay, we'll humor.
Motion to approve.
Motion here.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. We'll go to staff communications here.
None from Development Services or Parks and Rec.
From finance, we had a good close for October. We'll have our reports at the next meeting. The budget is going along swimmingly, actually. We're right on target. We'll have that for our next meeting. The audit, I had conversations with the auditor just today and last week, even over the holiday break, a few emails back and forth. They are supposed to get me another draft, something that's workable, and I would say there was about 7 or 8 little items that had to be fixed, and they've all been taken care of, the last one today. So I can see some progress. It's just, of course, again, it's laughable how slow it's going. So, but it is what it is.
It sounds like you're getting there though, so
We are getting there.
keep pushing forward.
That's about all we have for finance.
Any questions for finance?
So do you think we would have the audit by the end of the month?
No.
Okay.
I would like to say it. If I start saying no, then maybe it'll happen.
Okay.
'Cause I've been
Reverse
saying,
psychology.
yeah, sure, it's gonna work. But no, I can hope, but as we've discussed before, I don't put much, finance doesn't work on hope.
Okay.
Okay. Chief?
So you guys approved the purchase of the body armor and the rifles a couple months ago. All that's been ordered, and with the exception of the rifles, we've gotten everything in. I've reached out to ProForce to find out an ETA on the rifles, and have yet to hear back. But everything's been ordered, and we're just waiting on the rifles.
Sounds like you need to set up a shooting day then. Any questions for Chief?
Can I get in on that range day when?
Yeah. Yes, he can.
Give show and tell for the city council, please.
Right?
Public Works?
Nothing from Public Works tonight, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Public Works? No? Okay. City Manager?
Thank you. A couple of items tonight. We've been working with the Measure P committee and expect at the next meeting, next council meeting, a Measure P presentation. You'll recall you set up the committee to make presentations prior to mid-year budget and prior to the annual budget. So at the next meeting, we expect, again, still coordinating with them to finalize that, but expect that at the next meeting. We'll also do our third quarterly strategic plan update at the next meeting as well. As we look at economic development, we did have the third economic development committee meeting last week. Primarily, the group looked at making some recommendations on economic development programs. One of the main things within economic development is creating an economic development strategic plan. We have put that out for RFP, request for proposals. We expect proposals back in January 8th. And it'll take some time to get the consultant on board and then prepare the plan. So we expect about a year until that plan is complete. Could be 9 months to a year until that plan is complete. The council allocated $50,000 of Measure P funds to start investing in economic development. And so what we talked about at the committee meeting is what are the things that we can invest in immediately that wouldn't be contingent on any sort of long-term plan. And so we will likely have some recommendations to council here in the coming meetings to start investing in economic development. Another item that was discussed here is SSJAD and them becoming the electrical provider in lieu of PG&E. We heard last week that a major milestone was met with SSJID. They have gotten out of the CPUC, the Public Utilities Commission venue, and are back into the courts. They do not have a court date, but they're really kind of spinning in the PUC. And so they've passed that hurdle and are going to the courts. That doesn't mean anything's imminent, but it's at least one kind of vortex hurdle that was
Sounds like they hit the lotto. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yes, it's a good first step, an initial step, and there's still a long way to go, but at least they can kind of have some forward progress. And then just want to mention to everyone, the Main Street project, so sidewalk installation on the park side, intersection improvements, sidewalk at the kind of the bulb outs, that is scheduled to start next Monday. Justin and others will start walking. We've told them, I would say ad nauseum, but we're going to walk this week again just to tell everyone that it's coming. Again, we purposely went right after the last event of the year and then prior to the first event of the following year, try to hit this window. We expect it to go smoothly, but crossing our fingers. But again, work's supposed to start next Monday.
Mr. French, were we able to incorporate some of the grading in the booth area as part of that project?
We believe we're going to be able to incorporate it. We are working with the contractor, George Reed, as we speak. We do have a quote from a third-party vendor. We're working with them to see what they can and can't do. Yes, we're working on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a rumor or not, but I was approached and asked if we're trying to move a water line behind Hula's or something. Is that true, or what's the story there?
No, so I talked to Tony from Hula's himself today too. There's been some investigation going on the lot that's behind Hula's there. We have 4 meters that are out front. I personally, and some public works won't know what's in the area, so we called in for a USA to do some water repair, but we're not gonna explain to Tony there's no water repair needed at the moment. But we want to kind of just plan for the future if anything does want to go in that area, if there's anything as far as infrastructure wise and all the utility departments, if anything's going to be needed. So nothing's going on that lot other than just informational for us.
So the rumors of Dutch Brothers is not true.
I have not heard of Dutch Brothers at all. Not at all.
I'm just joking.
That lot is currently for sale, isn't it?
But from an economic development standpoint, we do have an unused parcel within a major shopping center. There has been some interest recently, and there's some question, as Justin just indicated, sort of what is under that parcel in terms of utility lines, easements, what would, sort of the buildable space be. We've confirmed probably 3 of the utilities, and we're waiting on 1 other utility, and so we wanted to USA it just to make sure.
Any other thoughts up here before we go to the citizens? Anyone would like to discuss anything with the staff? Anyone have some thoughts? No? Okay, online? All right, we'll bring it back. Excuse me, we'll go to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address for the record, however, it is not required. Due to state law, action will not be taken on any item that is not on the agenda, and except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing any item not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to a staff and/or placed on a future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. At this point, do we have any matters from the audience? Ms. Lewis?
Good morning, or good evening. I'm here this evening to address the LED light that was installed at United Methodist Church at 2000 Jackson Avenue. I live at 1616 4th Street, next door to the laundromat. When the sign was initially installed, it's a 2-sided LED sign, so it faces eastbound and westbound 120. When it was first installed, there was no, they weren't given much instruction. The parishioners, there's one parishioner that has control over the entire LED screens. She does the programming for brightness and the design of the messaging and all of that. They initially had it at 75%, and there were homes on Coley Avenue at the post office that were getting sprayed with light. It's the LED light bulbs have a direct light. It's not a shielded light. So I was working with the church. I was in communication with them. They were very resistant to making any changes. So I've had conversations with my council member. I've had conversations with Jalen French regarding this. And I feel like it's gotten to the point the church is unwilling. And they've said that they're going to make concessions, and they have not done any of it. So I feel like this might need to be an agenda item at some point, but I want to start the communication with City Council and whoever, Public Works or whoever is in charge of all of this. I just want to give you an example of the conversations I've had with specifically Mary Pinero. She's the one that's in charge of the light. This is going on 2.5 years. And it's impacted my quality of life in my home. I have 3 major windows, my dining room that goes into my kitchen, my living room, and my master bedroom. They get sprayed with this light. I have a massive mirror in my bathroom, and it amplifies the light. So I'm just talking about, and I think I'm one of the only homes, and there's 2 homes I think that are directly impacted by this light. There's a duplex, a 2-story duplex that's at the end of their driveway that was across from the Dollar Savers. They get sprayed with light. So I have concerns about that as well. But I've had between August of 2023 and when was this? April of 2024, I had at least 10 conversations with the church. I've asked them to stop the flashing of the messages, or at least slow them down. They said that they won't do that because they want the message to change when there's passing traffic. So it's at 5 seconds. I've asked if they could change the color background to a dark color so I'm not getting sprayed with the bright background. She initially agreed to that, but she has not adhered to it. More than likely, it goes from white to blue to green, back to white. It's very irritating. And I've asked for her to slow down the messaging, like I said, up to 10 seconds. She hasn't done it. I've asked if they could turn it off completely at night. No. Hard no. I asked if she could just keep the LED screen a solid message after maybe 8 p.m., a dark background saying that it's the church. Again, she said maybe. It was never done. So this is going on 2.5 years now. And I have done some investigation. I know I only have a few minutes, but according to the municipal code 1742.03, prohibited signs, it says that the very first one, A, reflective, flashing, or revolving or moving signs are prohibited except if it's for time and weather. So I feel like that is already in violation of a code that's been established with the city of Escalon. Also, Municipal Code 1742.010, and this is for sign regulation itself. There are a lot of restrictions on lighting itself. Most lights have to be shielded in some way. You can't have direct light bulbs facing out at people. LEDs just violate all of that. There are a lot of communities in our state, in our region, that have had to deal with this. The city of Manteca has completely outlawed them. You cannot have LED signs because they are dangerous. And then I've also talked to Caltrans because it's so close to the highway, and I was concerned about the curve. And they also have their own restrictions, especially for double-sided LED signs, which we're dealing with here in Escalon. And I think that the city's own code says it's 150 Lamberts. Do I get another moment? Or is that a hard cutoff?
Just wrap it up.
We'll let you wrap it up as long as you're...
Yeah, I'm there.
Quick.
So I was trying to be very accommodating. I was trying to keep in communication with the church. I have direct communication with Mary Pinero, and she's often out of town, out of reach, so the sign goes unabated. I would like for there to be some type of code created that restricts lighting and maybe creates fines if they want to keep this $20,000 sign. I would like to move towards removal. I think that it was installed illegally. It's out of code in many ways. So that's my proposal. I would ultimately like to see it removed because otherwise it's just going to be a stationary sign.
Okay. Well, we are past our 5 minutes,
Yes,
so
that's fine.
I appreciate.
I just wanted to open communication, and if I can I'll probably send an email out to Jalen, and then maybe it can be forwarded to all. Okay.
Appreciate your time here. Anyone else have anything else?
We just celebrated Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And so you guys, you get to hear a lot of complaints and you get a lot of, why aren't you out here and doing this? And how come you guys are so whatever? And, all of these things. So I just wanted to take this opportunity, regardless of Thanksgiving or not, but just to say thank you to each of you and your departments and for sitting up there and giving of your time, because your compensation, that's a joke. Okay. So for giving of your time and your service, and I mean, this is a Monday night, you're off, right? 9 to 5? So thank you. And thank you for pouring into our little community. And, I don't always agree with all of y'all, but I really appreciate that you're there and you're sitting in the hot seat making the decisions that I don't have to. And I can just, feed ideas or whatever. But just know that, sometimes you hear a lot of the negative. So tonight, thank you, all of you, every one of you. So appreciate it.
Appreciate the input. That's awesome. We don't get that very often, so. Anyone else? Okay. I guess we'll shut it down, bring it back to public hearings, and we don't have anything there. So we'll go to the administrative matters. Number 5.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a initial step in a Proposition 218 balloting process. You may recall back in August, a resident in the Westwood Country LLMD, or Landscape and Lighting District, requested to add a swing set to Swanson Park. Council generally directed city staff to move forward on that. At the same time, staff has been looking kind of through the Measure P conversation and others is what are some of the other amenities needed in parks? We're having conversations with the school district and opening up more recreational facilities and that type of thing. And so one of the major items that has been listed is outdoor basketball facilities, usable, available to the public basketball facilities. So for some time, from August till about now, we've been coordinating with the resident to see if this would be an agreeable option for the residents in this district. Of course, they would have to vote on it, approve it. He has had a couple of conversations with residents and generally thinks it could be a good idea to move forward not only with a swing set, but also with the installation of a half-court basketball court. And so now that we're there, that's the background. This process, this item before you is really the first formal step in the effort. And if the council agrees, you would direct staff to initiate the process. And generally what we would do is we would hire an engineer, really an assessment district engineer, to prepare the costs and kind of the assessment rates, right? That would be done in a report. We would share that report, then we would go out to a ballot. We'd notice the public, we'd go out to a 45-day ballot where they could vote. At the end of the 45 days, we'd hold a public hearing. We would tabulate the votes and the public input, and then depending on how the vote went, we would either move forward with the improvements or not. And so that's generally how the process works. They get to vote. It is a 50 plus 1% negative vote, or a rejection vote. What do we call that? A majority protest. And so meaning more than half of the residents in that area would have to protest the additional improvements and the additional cost. So this district is not unfamiliar with the process. In 2012, the playground equipment in the park was added. They went through the same process. It was added in 2012. We looked under the hood, so to speak, to see if the improvements approved at that time would cover the improvements we're talking about, even the swing set. And no, I think as we look at it, to be very fair to the process, it was clear what was provided in 2012, and so it didn't really fit. And so we'd go back out to a vote. So that is the process, that is the background. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Yeah, I don't see any problems. Does anyone up here see any issues or anything?
I don't have any issues, but I do have a question.
Okay.
About the engineer's report, will that be rolled over into their current assessment level for their LLD, the cost of the engineer's assessment?
Yeah, so if you look at, if I understand your question, if you look at the first page of the staff report, 29, and the second page of the staff report, 30, you will see sort of this bulleted list of improvements. Basically, this is what the district is funding in terms of the landscape and lighting district.
Right.
So if this moved forward, we'd add 2 bullet points, swing set and the half-court basketball court, and it would just become an improvement. So each year, we would look at the cost to maintain and, all of that. And that would, yes, that additive amount would be incorporated into their overall assessment rate.
Yeah, I was meaning more the actual cost of the assessment, the engineer's report for that, if that's going to roll over into them or if that's going to be shared, amongst the other LLDs, or if it's strictly just going to apply to Westwood.
We are looking into this further. It definitely would not be funded by the other landscape and lighting districts. If the district bore the cost, it would be solely within that district. I think there's some legal review that we need to do just to ensure that districts are set up to fund these types of added improvements or not. So we will do that review, or then it would just be a general fund cost, which it would be, an increment above what we are already funding. The consultant who is administering the districts would add this element into what they're already doing.
Okay, so probably minimal cost since it's just a small addendum item.
I mean, I would say, low 4 digits.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions up here?
I have a question, just a brief one, but can I ask the thought process of going to a half-court basketball court instead of a full-court basketball court?
Just the size of the park, the usability of the remainder of the park, and cost. There's no magic. I mean, we could definitely, even at this point, still go to full court if that was what was desired by anyone, by the council or by the residents. So no, there's no, just the 3 things that I mentioned.
I'm not an avid basketball player these days, but I once played basketball, and I just think that if we're spending the money for a basketball court, why not give them a full-court basketball court? I mean, it just makes sense they're paying for the amenity, and like the half-court basketball court right now at Latta Park. I understand that that's smaller and more condensed, but you have that open green space at Swanson Park. It just makes sense if we're spending the money to put in a basketball court, give them a full-court basketball court. There's a lot of kids in that neighborhood that would benefit from a full-court basketball court.
Maybe the best answer is to go ahead and have the citizens kind of weigh in on it, because he does bring up a good point with that.
Yeah, we can look into kind of how that would play out through the ballot or otherwise. We can figure it out.
Yeah, I was just going to underscore that point. This is citizen initiated and driven, and you're going to need them to be able to pass the vote. So ultimately, if there's will for it from them, then it would be their decision. But I think for whatever reason, they were thinking half court. So it's really up to them.
So how do we get that input? Or should we, if we know folks that live in that neighborhood, say there's a consideration for basketball court, do you prefer half court, full court? And not whatever they say, just have them reach out to the city manager? Or
I think if the residents want to weigh in prior to us really getting into this, they absolutely can. If it's clear one way or the other, then we can move forward with that direction. If it's still, too few votes or it's kind of ambiguous, then we can figure out other options. But as we get into the ballot and the engineer's report, we can share with the council kind of where we're at and how we think we would get community resident input on half court or full court.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts, questions, or input up here?
I'm no basketball enthusiast by any means, but I tend to agree with Councilman Stroman that makes an awful lot of sense. If we're going to put a court in, there's not a full court in this town any longer that people can just go to a park and play at. So if this is something that this LMD is interested in doing, I definitely would like to have their input, and I believe we kind of discussed the possibility of there being multiple options on the ballot.
We
Is that
haven't
possible?
fully got through the review of that and what that looks like legally or through 218, but
Yep.
that's an option we're exploring.
Any other thoughts before we go out to the public? Okay. Anyone in the public like to weigh in on this? No? Online? No? All right, we'll bring it back for last minute thoughts or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to direct staff to begin the Prop 218 process to provide these improved amenities for the Westwood Country Landscape and Lighting Maintenance District.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay. So we'll go on to number 6. And this is something that I wanted to bring to the community with, we bringing it up here. It is something that, Councilman Kay and I thought was important to not only know what's going on now, but looking into the future, how can we prevent issues that could arise? And this is one, albeit little thing, but it's something that goes along with the water quality and prevention of a lot of different neurological disorders and problems, is the fluoride that you see put in some water systems. We don't have that currently, right?
Right, correct.
But we would like to prevent that kind of stuff on the off chance that, Justin ever was not here. He's, I'd like to think he's going to be 200 years old, but 300. But you never know. So that's why we brought it to the dais in the first place. I don't know if Councilman Kay had something to say.
I think the importance of us bringing this forward is, again, it's not about today, it's what may happen in the future, and what a great night for us to be discussing this, the surface water project. Should that come to fruition, we are now using surface water. Are they going to fluoridate that water before it comes to us? So we want to be sure that we are ahead of that and be sure that that isn't happening. We aren't putting fluoride into our water stream in the future. So I think that was, really my motivation for bringing this forward, is making sure that we are protecting our future, not necessarily today.
Any, questions up here for us or for in general?
I'll just
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll just add, we did review and research and look and ask SSJID. They do not currently treat with fluoride, and they do not intend to at this time. It's not been a part of their discussion, so just an FYI on that. And if directed by the council, we would bring forward an ordinance for your consideration, and basically would say the city will not use fluoride into the future. And if we happen to partner with someone like SSJID, probably how it could go is if they start to use, they're outside of our jurisdiction, so if they start to use fluoride, it would trigger basically an automatic council discussion item, something where the council at the time could deliberate and discuss the issue and make the best decision at the time.
Yeah, I would just add that I think an ordinance would be pretty simple. It would basically be 2 parts. One, no banning fluoride use for the city's own treatment to the extent things ever change. And number 2, to the extent that the city were ever to purchase any water supply from any water purveyor or surface water supplier like SSJID, that the ordinance would require a public hearing to discuss the feasibility of that before entering into any agreement. So it would force a conversation with the future council and put sunshine on that. And that's probably the best way to deal with that. And then the council can make a fully informed decision after a public hearing. So that's what we were thinking in terms of an ordinance.
Any thoughts up here before we took it to the public, or any comments?
I have a question. Maybe it's me being naive, but when I was a kid, there was actually fluoride in the water, and they used it pretty regularly. Can you talk about some of the dangers with fluoride being added to domestic water?
I was going to crack a joke, but I won't.
It was just too easy on the owner.
I'm just joking. Yeah, you know.
I know I'm special, okay? I know I'm special.
Honestly, yeah, fluoride has been shown to actually have a major effect on your cognition, as well as is being linked to a lot of neurological disorders, primarily, as well as weakening teeth, which is obviously kind of weird that it's in your toothpaste, you know? But those would be the general big picture things that I've read about and consistently see in medical reports. And so what I want to make sure we're doing is we're forward thinking any of these things that may, affect us, our health, as well as the children's development in our community, is kind of the big picture idea.
Is it still an additive in toothpaste?
Yeah, I think so. In some toothpaste.
They tell you not to swallow.
Well, and that's kind of the thing here, is that when we put it in drinking water, now everything, that comes out of your faucet, out of your, refrigerator's tap, you're ingesting fluoride into your body.
Okay.
You're not just brushing your teeth with it and spitting it out in the sink.
Okay.
And then, as the doctor over there stated, the neurological issues that come along with that, along with the fact that essentially either the studies were bad or they lied to us. It was never helping our teeth to begin with.
And may I just add that some people may have different opinions on this, but if you do have the opinion that fluoride is good to have or ingest, that should be left up to the individual in their own household to make that decision. And that's not a government, in my personal opinion, is not a government's decision to force that on people through their tap water. So it shouldn't be necessarily outlawed in your own household, but maybe through the water that you're receiving.
Was fluoride ever an additive in the city of Escalon water system?
No, it's never
I don't
happened.
think so. We're looking at, I guess what I'm looking at is what potential things, if you project forward into the future, things that may be a concern, may not be a concern, as the city, develops or grows and into the future. I would want to make sure that if it ever was brought up, that it didn't sneak through the fence, so to speak, didn't fly under the radar, that the community was well aware of it so that they could, at that point, have a robust conversation about it, I guess is what I'm getting at. So some things are like in the here and now, and we fix them right, and some things are looking at what could go sideways, and that's something I see that could be an issue, because some cities still do it.
And that was going to be my next question to staff. Do you have any idea what cities, at least in our area, currently still use fluoride in the water?
No cities in our immediate area don't use fluoride that I'm aware of.
When did they stop that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard. Honestly, fluoride being into the water system was an older type thing, and it really kind of started in poverty type communities that didn't have dental work and stuff like that to be able to help children up to 8 to 10 years old where their teeth are still developing. But now what they're starting to find out, like what the mayor said, is it can lead to bone disease, bone stiffness and stuff like that when you're older. So it's really, it's just a debatable type thing. It's a natural mineral. It's almost in every bit of water, food, and everything that we have. It's just a matter of how much is there, to be honest with you.
Thanks.
Take it out to the public, or do you have any more thoughts up here on it? Okay, I'll go out to the public.
course. As a mom and a grandma, I appreciate this conversation. In the 1980s, oh yeah, I'm that old, my children were subjected to government mandates of certain things in their bodies that were now proven, I was screaming then, and now have been proven that, yeah, they do in fact caused harm. So I appreciate this conversation. I would like to see it go just a little bit further, and is there some legal terminology that you can add to, and any other thing that comes up, any other than fluoride? Because obviously you're not going to be able to name it because we don't know what it is yet. But they will come up with something, they always do. They meaning, other whatever. People who like to tell us what's better for us. So Melinda, I appreciate your comment, because if you want to have that in your home, then by all means go do that. But we don't want it injected and forced upon us just because someone said it's good for us, only to find out however many years later that, no, it really in fact isn't. So I appreciate the conversation, but I'd like to see it go just a little bit further, if at all possible, to cover any other, possibilities of any other mandates from government or any other suggestions to be added to water. I don't know if that can happen, but you have smarter brains here than me that can hopefully figure that out. So I appreciate the conversation.
I'm sorry.
I was talking.
I can wait.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea to keep all those type of minerals out of our water system, and why everybody's in agreement, fluoride, don't ever put it in. Maybe we should think about lowering the amount of lead, nitrate, nitrites, arsenic, and especially the lead. We could cut those in half real easily, and we all know how. It's with the mixing of the water from SSGID.
Any other comments or thoughts? Okay, we'll bring it back. Or sorry, online? No, we'll bring it back. Councilman Stroman, you have a thought there?
Yeah, I think Ms. Hill brings up a really good point to the Mayor Pro Tem's point. It's not our job as council or as water suppliers to decide what we're putting in the drinking water system. That's not our job. And so I guess my question is for the mayor and for Councilmember Kay. Would you be agreeable to expanding this, that there are no additives or chemicals or quote unquote minerals added to the water system without at least a discussion in a public forum?
I mean, I don't see a problem with that. With the exception of some current things, most likely Public Works has to do for cleaning the water. But
Right.
I want to maybe do a more thorough investigation of that kind of idea. I know, what are your thoughts, Justin?
I'm sorry, I was writing down what he was saying, what my thoughts on what.
You want to repeat?
Right, so Ms. Hill
Yeah.
brings up a really good point.
In fact, that's what I was writing down. I think it's a good point, but then you said, Kevin, we do want to keep in mind that chlorine is part of water
Right.
systems, liquid chlorine or liquid taps, so we don't want to, or hard taps, so we don't get to the point to where we're saying nothing, because it can be even more of a major problem.
Right.
But definitely things as far as fluoride and other minerals, for sure, it just needs to be a discussion, right?
Yeah,
So if somebody wants to do anything to the water system other than the city, it should be a discussion. Give us time to research that, figure out what's going on, and make that decision at that time. It's really going to be hard to narrow down, but
So fair to say you're good with discussion?
100%, I think.
Well,
So.
Because I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like, some of these things might be
I was just,
worth it.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go for it.
I was just giving you the chance to, get your thought out there before I asked our legal mind over there. Is there a way that we can essentially, obviously, fluoride is what we're after today. Is there a way that we can put language in there that should there be any mandated chemical, should there be any additives that are being requested of us to add to our water system, that it comes before council before anything happens?
It's really hard to, I was talking with Jalen about that before you asked, because that's the same thing we were struggling with. It's constantly evolving and changing, and I think the simpler solution would be simply to entitle the ordinance Public Water Supply Additive Ordinance, and pinpoint fluoride as one, and then just say that the city shall monitor any additional chemicals or other required treatments on a periodic basis and review this ordinance, something like that. So as the landscape changes, the city has the ability to simply.
So fair to say it would be essentially a revolving, conversation.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess that's the point, because every year, I mean, as we talked about with the surface water, the state is tightening the reins every single year. And so maybe it's just a yearly, either you do it or Tom does it, or whoever is the water purveyor does it, and does a report to the public and says, this year they're tightening the reins and these are the increased mandates. And that way, when the public sees water discussion on the agenda, they know exactly what they're getting straight out of the tap, and make it a regular yearly meeting at least.
Yeah, totally. As soon as anytime they ever raise the MCL, that's definitely a discussion that would be brought into staff, and we felt needed to be brought to council. 100% would be brought to council.
Any other thoughts up here?
Oh, sure. I might as well chime in. But we can't just, reverse osmosis water and then give straight H2O. That's not a thing. It's not good for us, right? Minerals are added for our benefit. So I think it's just a slippery slope when we talk about what we can and cannot put in the water. There are permissible exposure levels to all of those contaminants. I would think if you were to even try to restrict wording to carcinogens, we're exposed to on a daily basis. It's just the amount that we're exposed to. So for us to see contaminants in our water is just going to be something that we see. How often do we get our water report? I can't say that I've ever seen
We
one.
sample monthly. We get monthly, yearly, annual water reports. I mean, depending on.
And they get sent out to the public, or is that just on the website?
CCR annually. The CCR is annually.
The CCR is annual.
Yes, sir.
So we can kind of see what's in our water historically
Definitely.
and what's been in there. So if there was something that you were targeting, I would say take a look at that and try.
I guess what I'm looking at,
Those contaminants. I agree with the fluoride. I don't consume it. My own personal water filters have additional fluoride filters. I'm sure some still slips through, right? Because as Justin had stated, there is just a plethora of things in our water. It's not just,
I guess what I'm looking at is
oxygen.
I guess what I'm looking at is the difference between it just being in your water and then you intentionally adding it to the water.
Additional additives, sure. I think a lot of that's still going to be treated, though. Like if you look at your water bottles, right? I got one right here. It'll say right on there, minerals added for taste or something along those lines, right? We're just going to see those in there. So I think there's probably some additional additives along the lines with this sterilization chemicals that are used. Sounds like primarily chlorine. Do you know of any additional additives that are currently put into the water for taste or for odor removal or anything like that? Activated charcoal, like
Not in our system. Carbon filters are a big thing for other cities and stuff to filter through. But again, for like fluoride, that's you can't even get fluoride out with the carbon. It's reverse osmosis is the only way for fluoride.
But so there's not currently any additional additives?
No, none at all.
Well, I'm completely in favor with working something up. I just think we have to be diligent and use caution as
Makes
we
sense. Yeah, I don't want it to be a sweeping ban on this and ban on that, but I do want us to be consciously aware of the things that we're putting in our water so that we're not creating illness for no reason, So I guess that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I just wrote something like add a requirement to the ordinance that the city staff shall also review additives either being used or potentially to be used for treatment in the domestic water system and present to council for possible inclusion into this ordinance for regulation or prohibition. So the idea is.
That makes sense.
Staff's going to be monitoring it. If something is going to be used or potentially going to be used as an additive for treatment, that'll be presented to the council for discussion on whether they want to include that as well on the list.
Okay. Any other thoughts up here? Or any motions or anything like that?
I'll do it. I'll motion to I'm not sure what to do here, but to give staff direction to work on an ordinance restricting the use of additives to our domestic water supply.
That's good.
Okay.
I'll second that. Thanks for beating me to it, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
No worries. Anytime, just let me know, give me a thumbs up or something down the back.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay. And we'll go on to number 7.
Okay. This is generally what we call a resident agenda item request. It is by a forming organization. This pertains to the potential new Escalon Little League board, organization, and use of the fields. So in our policy, the way this works is from a resident, it lands on an agenda, it comes before the council to determine if there's enough support to consider it on a future agenda. So you're not making a decision tonight on whether they use or don't use the fields for free or not. You're making a decision tonight, should this land on the next agenda, 1215 agenda, for your deliberation. Just a little background, I think we know, but there is this community group, community-driven organization, fantastic, that is exploring entering some of our older baseball, softball athletes into the National Little League structure. They have to form a board. They are currently trying to get their 501c3 certifications or approval. Once they become a board, then they can officially do that. So what they're requesting in this item is in this transition year, they've actually asked for 2 years for the city at no cost to allow use of the fields, Hogan Fields in particular, and equipment for the Little League.
These are recreation kids anyways, right?
These are our recreation kids that will join the Little League, correct?
Again, I don't see a problem here unless you guys see something I'm not seeing.
May I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
Just usually we see a representative here when they are presenting some sort of agenda item. Just wondering where a board member might be today or for their presentation.
We didn't get any specific response. We did notify them twice.
Maybe they can come to the next.
Yeah, that the item.
This is to be seen at the next meeting. Maybe they.
So maybe they thought that. We did invite them and encourage them to attend.
Okay.
Any other thoughts up here? Or?
My only question on this subject is them moving to Little League. Obviously, they are going to be collecting fees from their players. We, in the past, have collected those fees, and that has helped to offset the cost of the maintenance of the field, all of this equipment, X, Y, and Z. This is a request for 2 years. Is that just to kind of get them off the ground? And then at that point, we'll kind of assess what costs should be shared between?
Ostensibly, although, they clearly say in their report that, they would like to explore, the waiver into a longer term. But yes, I believe that is the thought process here, in that during this transition, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, to allow free use of the fields. So just so you know, they're standing up their organization. So we are still accepting registrations open now. We are still accepting registrations for them. And then at some point, any funds will be pushed over to their organization to cover their costs, umpires, jerseys, anything else. And we will maintain the T-ball and 8U registration fees. So once they get themselves stand up, they get their own platform, whatever that looks like, then all those registrations will go direct, and then they can start maintaining their revenue intake and their expenses.
Makes sense what Councilman Kay is saying. I think I'm all for backing them, getting them to a point where they can thrive as a citizen group. And then at that point, reevaluating, maintenance stuff as far as things that are hard costs that, public works
should be
probably know more
compensated for essentially, right? Yeah.
Can I?
What?
May I?
Yeah, go for it.
You know, it's hard because there's no representative here to ask, but this is just to go onto an agenda item.
Yeah.
Because I do have questions like, will they be prepping fields, or is that something that we'll be doing? Will they be maintaining fields? Is that something we'll be doing? Because those are the costs that will be going into this. And then just if we're gonna have to book our people, I mean, I know that we prep the night before a lot. Is that something we're going to be asking our people to do, or is that something they're doing? Are they gonna be providing chalk, like the actual chalk to chalk fields and drag? I guess they'd be used on our drag, but like the things that go away, like I said, chalk is one of those items. Is that something that we'll be providing? Those are the questions that I really have, more about the cost of these kinds of
All very
things.
valid
Since
and
the
fair
income
questions.
sounds like it's going to their organization. One of the reasons why we do have a 25-75 split, typically when we have an outside entity come in and use the city for advertisement and those types of things, we usually have a 25% fee come off of what they do for income, and that actually goes to part of the fees, insurance, those types of things. So anyway, those are the questions that I have. Prep, what the time looks like with the split of Escalon and the Little League. Anyway, those are that's my question, but
those
there's no one
questions
to
that we
answer
can-
right now.
Yeah, I mean, so valid and good questions. I think the relationship dynamic is not set. They are trying to stand up this organization. They need to figure out where they have resources. I think where we've landed, I think in at least the first year, is city will do most of the maintenance, the chalk providing, those types of things, because they're not there yet. Now, at some point mid-season, they're there and it works with our side, we can start to transition, but they're not there yet. And so as we get past the first year, then I think we can explore further and then on to future
Is it
years.
fair to say that this is something we can hash out at the next meeting?
We can hash out these things at the next meeting?
Yeah, so there's concerns.
But I don't think those questions posed by Mayor Pro Tem will be settled there, because they're not there as an organization yet to know, what they can and can't do.
So I guess I have a little bit of different perspective, and it's not because I drank water with fluoride in it when I was a kid. But I kind of look at this as it's a win-win. And just for the record, Little League Baseball is near and dear to my heart. Founded in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where I went to college. So I love Little League. Been to the World Series many times. But I think that these little nuances are something that actually could be a really big benefit to the community, especially for our public works crew. Because if we train the Little League staff or volunteers how to do the chalking, how to do the maintenance, how to do those activities that are normally a burden on public works, that actually frees up some time for you guys to do other things. So while we may not be charging them a fee to use the fields, if we train them, they could possibly do an in-kind donation with their time for something that's normally done utilizing the city's resources.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that line of thinking, definitely. And then I guess really we can just pause this conversation if we're going to allow this to move forward as an agenda item, right?
Do we have to vote on allowing this as an agenda item?
Yes. Well, if we're going to do that, there's some things that I'd like to see. So while I participated in Little League, and I think that it's a much better program than any other rec league that I've seen, I see some issues. So 2 years, I don't think we should extend it to 2 years. I think we should talk about that 1 year. But if we're going to open up that conversation, like, there's some things I want to see. I want to see their mission statement. I want to see their business plan. I want to see where they stand currently fiscally. I want to see what that plan is projected to look like over the next 12 to 24 months so that we can see. But what I don't want to see is that the Little League turns a profit, which I get that it's a nonprofit, but if they have staff and that they're paying them, if they're if they're making money, that should be our money. And so to give them that use for free is objectable, in my opinion. I would think, reassess after 1 year and then, talk about it again. Maybe that's what they need to get their feet off of the ground, which I'd love to see. I want them to do that, but it needs to be fair to the taxpayers, and we don't need to be, donating any money to their organization that's could potentially come back to us.
Those would be things that we could have them bring to the next meeting.
So staff, if you could make sure that there's at least 1 or 2 representatives. And with that, I will move to approve this agenda item.
Hold on one second, I gotta have the public.
Okay.
Anyone in the public like to make a comment on this?
Sherry looks like she's ready to come up.
Okay, we'll bring, anyone online? No, okay, we'll bring it back to Sean.
I would just like to make a motion to approve this agenda item to be presented at the next city council meeting to consider the allowance of Escalon Little League to be able to use for the field and park use.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All righty then. On to council communications. Start with Councilman Kay.
I wasn't even going to give you the chance to say my name tonight. I actually have a question. I'm not sure if this lands on Public Works. It is a transit question. The bus stop on McHenry that is on the plant side of McHenry, so the west side of the road, why is that located there?
The bus stop, I'm not,
There's a sign, right?
oh, from across from Marval?
Yeah, across from, well, exactly.
That's a good question, but we could reach out to John Ando, our transit manager, and ask him that.
So multiple times I've witnessed this, and it's been brought to my attention multiple times as well. Seeing people, that are wheelchair bound crossing McHenry where there's not a crosswalk to go to a bus stop that's on the wrong side of the street when there's a sidewalk on the other side of the street that's safe for them. I was just curious if I guess that John would definitely be the person to ask about it. But is there a reason that it's on that side of the street, and is it possible for us to move it to the other side of the street where it's safer?
Yeah.
We'll
look into that for sure.
I would appreciate you checking into that for me. Aside from that, I hope that everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm really excited about one of the the best things about Escalon, Christmas on Main, and I hope to see everybody down there. And like I said, that's one of the best things about being an Escalonian is Christmas on Main. So I hope to see the massive turnout that we saw last year. Hopefully we can beat those numbers. And that's about all that I have for tonight.
Is the bunny showing up?
Yeah.
I don't know if the bunny will be there or not.
Griswold might be there, just so you know, or Cousin Eddie.
Cousin Eddie.
We'll go to Councilman Stroman.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to save my comments to the end of the meeting.
Okay. Councilman Engel?
Sure, yeah, just real quickly, because it indirectly affects me and us, I guess. Everybody's probably seen the incident that happened recently in Stockton. I actually had multiple employees that were directly affected by that evening, and I just want to come out and say that even with that, I don't believe that we have a gun problem in America. I believe that we have a mental health issue in America and a lack of parenting that's currently happening with our youth. And I don't know how to potentially advocate in that direction. So if anybody has suggestions on things that we can do or that I can do personally, I'd appreciate hearing about them, because it was just kind of needless. And I'm sure everybody may have their own individual take on it based on what form of media that they got their information from. But having dealt today with individuals who were directly affected that night, I just felt compelled to say something, because I can hear the rhetoric coming out now, right? It's guns, it's guns, it's guns. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And there's an issue in America with the way that we are viewing the value of human life. And I'm hopeful that we can come to some sort of resolution with that, and I'm happy to participate in any of that could potentially push that in the right direction. So again, if anybody has any thoughts or ideas on how to move that needle, even just a little bit, please speak up. I'd be more than happy to jump on board with that and help push that in any direction, any positive direction.
Are you thinking like local? Or are you thinking?
Anywhere, right? I mean, we've all seen that whole 6 degrees thing. Everybody remember that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? So we're all within 6 degrees of everybody else essentially on the planet. So maybe you know somebody.
Well, I could deliver your message to the school board if you want, or Pro Tem can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the youth, right? These are our future leaders, the people that are going to be taking care of us as we age. And you know, I have adult children and young children, and I definitely see, you know, a difference growing up in the 80s and then into the 90s, you know, with attitudes towards human life. Now, you know, there's definitely a difference, and it takes people to stand up and do something. If people aren't going to take action and kind of put their money where their mouth is and try and make moves to make things change, things aren't going to change. It's just going to remain the same. And the current course that we're on, it doesn't look like a place where I want my, you know, grandkids to grow up. Not really sure what else to say on that. You know, it was on my heart, you know, for the things that I was dealing with today. So I just wanted to speak up on that, and hopefully there's some of us that can make some suggestions or have that own personal impact, and make a difference, because, you know, some things have to change. It's people, right? People are inanimate objects. Don't cause problems. People cause problems.
Did you have any more you wanted to add?
No, thank you.
We'll go to Pro Tem.
Sure. Big congratulations to the Youth Cougars, and thank you for coming out tonight in full force. Just another part of our investment in the community and seeing our kids going out and just putting themselves out there and working hard. I was a part of an Escalon High School Cougars championship team, and that is the lead-in program for the next generation of hard workers that are getting out there, getting outside, not on just sitting at home doing nothing, but getting out there, being with their community, in their community, whether it's playing sports or not. So congratulations to the Youth Cougars. In our conversation today, I just wanted to go, I didn't say much. I did want to go on record just to say that I believe that the surface water project is important, and the diversification of our water source is important. There are a lot of cities that are just on well water here in the valley, and they are wondering where they're going to get their water next, whether it's 50 years or 100 years down the road. But it is the cities that have surface water as well that are going to end up surviving down the road. And so there's a lot of cities that are envious, I guess, or look positively on those cities that do have diversification, have more than one source of water. And so we should consider ourselves lucky to have that potential hookup. And I believe that this is an important project for us to continue going down the road. Now, who pays for it? I would love to see California or somebody else pay for it, but it does need to get done, and we do need to keep it on the books at least. But I'd hate to see this can kick down the road 35 more years, but it is an investment in the city's future for us to have water and be surviving for our kids and for the next generation. So I just wanted to go on record with that. Anyway, piece of information is talking to other city councils and whatnot, and how they feel about Escalon's future and their own futures, right, and their nervousness about their own futures right now. Our future can be bright as long as we get our heads together and work towards our future and making sure that we have our resources, our food, water, and housing is what you need to get together to be able to have a city and be sustainable. So just wanted to say that. Besides that, I will see you out at Christmas on Main. Again, come on out and participate in your community and see your community members and see the twinkly lights. So I'll see you out there. That's it.
Well, I won't make it too long. I wanted to just say, I'll see you at Christmas on Main. We have a town that's a pretty unique town, and like Pro Tem says, part of that is seeing the potential dangers and pitfalls in the future and making a game plan to navigate those well ahead of time. So I do appreciate the robust conversation up here and the logic and the real critical thinking that I see in my colleagues. So good work. Other than that, I'll pass it on to Sean, Councilman Stroman.
Yeah, so I have a couple things. First of all, we've been talking recently about, on a couple different occasions, about the community center fees. And so I'm just looking for council support that we revisit the policy and actually just have an open, candid discussion about where that policy is.
Just a general conversation?
Just a general conversation about the policy. Does it need updated? Where it needs updated? How do we update it? Et cetera, et cetera. So if we could just have that conversation on a future agenda item, it'd be very much appreciated.
I don't have an objection to that. I don't know if anyone else does or not, but.
Two more things. Looking forward to Christmas on Main. It's always a fun time, especially with the snow and riding on the floats. I really hope the pink bunny comes back this year, but I don't know. But on a more serious note, it's been a rough 4 months for Escalonians. Late July, we lost John Largent. In October, we lost Al Bellinger. And 2 weeks ago, we lost Danny Fox. As I sit here today, I consider all three of those gentlemen friends and mentors. John spent 40 plus years on the Escalon school board, gave all of his free time to the Escalon Lions, to his family, and to the school board. He was giving back to his community everywhere where he could. One of the last conversations John and I had was he was giving me the history lesson of everything on the east side of Yosemite from Mitchell, and how the house on the corner of Mitchell and Yosemite that kind of stands at the northwest corner used to be the milking barn. And he worked there as a kid, milking cows. Everything else was a field. That's our neighborhood now, Mr. Mayor. Learned a lot from John Largent, and he will definitely be missed. And then it came as a shock about 6 weeks ago, losing Al Bellinger. I mean, Al's loss was really, really hard because of the relationship we all have with Dave. And Al used to love to give me a hard time, give my son a hard time, but Al poured 20 years of his life for the veterans of Escalon. He was an active member of the American Legion. He believed in the community, and he dedicated himself to really promoting veterans in the community of Escalon. But 2 weeks ago, I will say that I lost a very dear friend. So I didn't have a relationship with Danny when he was Officer Fox and the DARE officer. I had a relationship with Danny because of the relationships that he formed up here on the dais. For those of you that don't know, Danny and I would go out to breakfast a lot, sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, just to chat. Danny was a true dear friend and a mentor, and I truly loved Danny with all my heart. I was actually flying back to Florida to spend some time with my family and got the notification via text message from Jalen that he passed away so suddenly. And I just sat on the airplane and cried because we were just together 3 days before that. But I guess my point of all of this is those 3 pillars within the city of Escalon, they had 3 priorities. Number 1 priority was selfless giving to others, putting others first. Number 2 is trying to make a difference every single day. And number 3, making Escalon the best damn little city in California. So I implore the community, I implore staff, but most importantly, I implore my fellow council members, just because John and Al and Danny aren't here physically anymore, don't let their dream die. Make sure they live in all of us. Make sure they live their selfless giving in everything that they did for our communities, whether it's for the veterans, whether it's for the schools, whether it's for the kids, whether it's for council. Give it 110% when you can. That's what they would want. I will say that I will miss John. I will miss Al. But damn it, I am really going to miss Danny Fox. I appreciate the moment of silence, but this one I'm taking really hard. Because we talked almost every day, not about city business, but about our families, about life, about him driving, going golfing at the Escalon Golf. Our last conversation was, we were talking about going to the Notre Dame Stanford game a couple of days ago, but he didn't make it. So to Peggy and Dusty, to Coral and Amber, I don't know the pain that you're going through, but I feel like I've really lost a friend. I think Danny would want me to end this by just saying, go Irish. That's it.
Well, we know he'll be missed, that's for sure. And hopefully, with time, you'll get through this feeling you have. I guess we're at the end of the rope here, so